Good evening and welcome to the Policy Committee meeting. Today is Monday, September 11th, 2023. We're room D205 and it is 6:45 p.m. Present this evening, we have Mr. Stengel, Dr. Davis, Dr. Fries, Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Gensel, Ms. Guth. In addition, we also have sitting in the second row, Ms. James, Mr. Marciniak, Dr. Schumann, and Ms. Ross. We have three policies, and I'm Ms. Olbrich. We have three policies for review this evening. We have Policy FA, Facilities Planning and Development Goals, Policy IJND, Network/Internet Use, and Policy IJNDC, Website Policy. Dr. Fries.
Thank you so much. So yes, we have three, I don't need this microphone, I don't know what I'm doing. We have three policies for consideration tonight and for feedback. The first one is FA, which is the Facilities Planning and Development Goals. If you take a look at page 1 of 2, you will see that there are some significant changes to this policy, the first being with the update to the background. Followed by some smaller updates to objectives, policy, and key considerations that we would like the board to consider for an update for this particular policy. And we're open for any questions that anyone may have about the suggested changes.
Mrs. Gensel, Ms. Guth?
I don't have any specific questions. I mean, it seems this is just generally updating the verbiage.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the revisions are really thoughtful. I much appreciate it, especially the background, the extensive additions to the background. That's really good because facilities are a huge part of place-based learning, which is a huge part of student success. So thank you.
Yeah, I think, I know that we had put this policy forward a couple of months ago and then pulled it back from the vote because we didn't think it was quite ready. And I think that this incorporates everything that we had talked about here and then also at the DEI committee meeting, that it really, we're striving to provide this safe, welcoming environment for all students regardless of background and identity. So, any other comments or questions regarding this? Okay, are we good to move it forward for a vote next week? Yeah. All right. Moving on.
Great. Our next policy is IJND, which is Network Internet Use, and there are no changes that we've recommended at this time.
Okay.
Any questions on this one?
So the only question I have on this with regards to things like, use of network by students and staff, acceptable, is that where we create the policy with acceptable network use? Like, how do we monitor this? This is more of a Mr. Stengel question. How are we monitoring kids' use of our network? What are we screening? What programs are we using?
I mean, I would say by policy, we monitor and screen and filter to be SIPA compliant, and whatever rules the federal government lays down for us to receive our E-rate things is the baseline. I would say we definitely do a lot more than that. We go above and beyond. We have filters in place that keep out at different levels of elementary, middle school, and high school access to websites that are not only against that policy, but we also deem inappropriate and not suitable for school use.
Okay, thank you. That answers.
I mean, I'll add on. Your question is more how are we watching it too? We also have our website filter also produces a number of reports that most of our administrators have access to regarding student behavior online and where they're going and browsing habits, etc. Our current web filter uses artificial intelligence to provide us with notifications when it thinks the students are being seeking of information that might be indicative of thoughts of self-harm or ideation towards that. We receive those alerts and we use those alerts to notify principals and, depending on time of day, 24/7, file safe to say reports as well, based on that monitoring.
So it goes to, safe to say then, it goes through that channel if you.
Yeah, I mean, our internal process is that if it's during the school day, we alert someone at the school in case there's an opportunity to interact with that student right then and there, in the moment that it's happening. And if it's outside of school hours, we do safe to say.
And we also contact the police, and they work with us, especially in the cases of self-harm. We'll send somebody to the house to do a welfare check to make sure the students are okay. And then when they return to us the following, say, day or the following Monday, we meet with the students and put a plan in place. I think the layered approach is good. It does allow us that if we get something that, say, somebody's searching something that's inappropriate, that there can be a conversation with the student and an alert to the family that it's occurring. And if it's something that is egregious, it can be addressed through the school code of conduct. Do you want to add anything, Dr. Davis?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Is the important component to this is the making sure the students are safe. And the system is pretty good at flagging and notifying us. I guess it notifies Chris, and he puts them in the safe to say in the evenings and the weekends. But our relationship with the police department is critical, and they're always willing to go out and do a home visit, make sure that the student is safe. And as you indicated, then the counselor will follow up the following day or the following Monday. I think it's a great tool, a great resource, and I think it is. I think it has saved a life or two.
That's awesome. Thank you. Any other questions with this one?
No, I think this goes hand in hand with a lot of the administrative directives we already have in place, like the handbook policies, especially for inappropriate use and activities.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good the layered approach, just as you mentioned, is really important. And informing, students about proper usage of internet access and ethical use of internet access. It's good. You can see it at the least in my kids. I can see them bringing home pretty good lessons on the dangers of TikTok and things like that. So it's good.
Okay, so we will just mark this as reviewed. And we do
Reviewed.
not have to put it up for a vote.
That's correct.
Awesome. Moving on to IJNDC.
Okay, so our last one is our website policy. And if you take a look at this policy, you can see that there are some minor changes. On the first page, it does take out a section about that the website is designed to contain staff home pages to provide homework, et cetera, because we have moved to Schoology, which is our more relevant resource for families to connect with teachers. And then the other areas under student safeguards, there's an area here where we take out names of other family members or names of friends in terms of what the website content may not include. And then, because we wouldn't typically put their friends or their family members' names on the website. And then the last section is number 6, where we talk about, we removed online activities of any and all individuals are subject to monitoring while they're using district equipment to access, because this is covered in other policies.
So this is basically updated to address how we currently use the website versus Schoology.
That's correct.
Great. Any questions on this one?
It's great.
Okay, are we good to move this forward for a vote? Okay. Let me just make some notes here. Okay. All right, I think that is all. Seeing as we do have a visitor this evening, do we have any comments or questions from the audience? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record. And you will have 4 minutes, but we don't have a
It's
timer.
running the clock. I know Mr. Spangler and I, we've quickly spoken about this.
Name and address.
Oh, Jean Thomas, Pen Oak Road.
Thank you.
I know we've spoken about this previously, but where in the network and the internet use policy does it include or cover specific safeguards regarding COPPA? I guess that's the Children's Online Protection Act, where our teachers are introducing our students to websites that are not meant to have logins for children who are under the age of 13 because they store and use data. But the district has then given kids this Google sign-on, and through the single sign-on thing, they're kind of in and they have a login suddenly. So that's my first question. And my second question is the protection of children's logon information and how the district handles that. My child is a little bit past the age, but it was very commonplace when she was in primary and elementary that the kids would be given QR codes to log into Clever. And they would be either taped to a folder or they would be magnets on front of the desk. And then people would, like any adult or even any other student in the room, for that matter, could then have access to anybody else's QR code, which gets you into Clever, which gets you into a whole host of things, one of which I believe is Power School, so you can see other children's grades. And any adult who is then in the classroom for holiday parties or to be a guest reader or anything like that, and photos are taken, then you end up with these things all plastered on social media and Facebook pages where you hit like a potential like wider audience. So, like,
Is that happening? Can I ask?
is-
Since I'm new,
like, are people I don't know.
are
if
people taking pictures of them
accessing
and
it.
putting them on social media?
It's common practice if people are in there for like a classroom party or whatever, they'll take pictures of like the Valentine's Day party or the Halloween party and children's, or even in there for like open house or curriculum night, where the desks are visible and these labels might be on there just completely visible. So, I can't comment necessarily as to whether or not they're being used in that matter, but there is the potential because the code is there and it does get you into, and I don't know what North Allegheny, I don't know if they were like a Clever school or whatever, but when you do scan the QR code, it does get you into a whole host of that. And of course, when you get out of like primary, elementary, the kids know their, user IDs and their passwords, so they're not the QR codes, but at that point in time, they could still be historically on social media if someone hasn't changed their password, and it could be, in the upper levels right now.
Mr. Stengel, do you have anything?
Yeah, so there are two layers to that. The one I would say in terms of like what web spaces and web resources are approved by the district for use and whether or not they are COPA compliant in terms of disclosing rostering information to a third-party site, et cetera. I would say is probably a valid question for the selection of curricular materials more than it is a district website. But I would be interested to see that language folded in and concern and care given towards, when curricular leaders choose those materials, whether they be a book, whether it be a website, what are the guidelines that they are asked to consider, or do they check with Central for whether or not this thing that they want to use is COPA compliant? That's a fair question.
But can you answer to the single sign-on? Single sign-on does not occur unless we approve it.
Yeah, what we put through Clever has gone
Right.
through the central administration in terms of, if it's in Clever, it has gone through certain checks about, whether or not it is compliant with those things and whether they give those assurances to us.
What if it's not in
Right,
Clever?
because there are a lot of other websites that are out there that it's like, oh, use Google to sign in. You're like, heck yeah, just
Yeah, understood.
click and go. And I think that's
Understood,
more.
and
the-
so if there are places where certain teachers or curricular leaders are choosing to send students to that, it would be best that that's done centrally. But I can't speak to what everybody's doing all the time. But that would be like an outline, that wouldn't be like a district program. To the question of password security and QR codes and things being left open, that's a valid concern. I've been dealing for 20 years with teachers who leave their passwords on sticky notes on the monitor. So it's a valid thing, and education is the answer. We try to get that out to them all the time. I don't think those things should be left out.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stengel. Any other questions from the audience regarding the three policies for this evening? Okay. What you had just mentioned in your response to Mrs. Thomas, you'd like to see something in a policy. Is that one of these two policies, or is that?
It would definitely not be one of these policies. It would be
Okay.
more around the selection of curricular materials.
Okay, so that's nothing to do with this. Perfect. So we are good. Any other questions or comments or concerns? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?